Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it like she was doing me a favor. I don't need a man to be happy. We were at Olive Garden, of all places, her idea, her rules, her stage. She said it between sips of wine, scrolling through her phone, not even looking up. The words didn't sting. Not yet. They just hung in the air like smoke. Heavy, sour, impossible to ignore. I remember setting down my fork, wiping my hands on the napkin, and saying, calm as glass, "Great. Let me prove you right." She laughed at first, thought I was joking. Then she saw I wasn't. And for the first time in months, she lost her smile. We drove home in silence. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for an argument, for me to break the tension and chase her ego. I didn't. I just drove, the glow from her iPhone lighting her face in the passenger seat. I remember thinking how easy it was for her to disappear into that screen, how she'd already started practicing what life would look like without me. That night, she slept facing the wall. The next morning, she didn't say goodbye. I watched her leave through the window, Starbucks cup in hand, heels clicking like a countdown. I didn't follow. I didn't text. I just let her go, because this time, I actually wanted to see what would happen if I did nothing. By day 3, she started testing the silence. A hey text, then another, then a meme, like nothing had happened. I didn't reply. She was used to my attention being automatic, like morning coffee. But that's the thing about attention. Once it's gone, it starves everything that depends on it. A week later, I saw a post on her Instagram, a quote about independence and self-love, with a perfectly angled selfie. The comments were full of hearts and fire emojis. It looked convincing, but I knew that look in her eyes, the kind that says, I hope someone's still watching. I wasn't. I had other things to do, my own quiet, my own peace. I deleted her number, blocked her socials. Gone. 2 weeks later, I got a message from an unknown number. Just one line. You really proved your point. I didn't reply, but I recognized the writing. Short, careful, emotional in a way she never was before. That's when I realized she'd finally become independent, just not in the way she wanted. She wasn't free. She was unseen. And now, she was texting me from a burner, just to remember what it felt like to be noticed. The message came at midnight. Just one line, no name, no emoji. You really proved your point. I stared at it for a while, half expecting another text to follow. It didn't. Just silence. I knew it was her. The punctuation gave it away, the careful period at the end, like she was pretending to be composed when she wasn't. I didn't respond. By the next morning, she'd sent another message. I'm not mad. I just didn't think you'd actually leave. That one made me pause. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I'd always known. She never believed I could detach. She thought I'd orbit her forever, feeding her sense of control. But when you stop chasing someone who runs on validation, they fall apart faster than you'd think. I went through my day like nothing happened. Coffee at Starbucks before work, the same barista, same quiet routine. I noticed how calm it felt. No double-checking my phone. No emotional hangover. Just peace. I started getting used to it. That night, I went for a drive in my Ford F-150. Open road. No music, no calls. I ended up at the pier where we used to go on Sundays. The water was dark and still, the kind of quiet that reminds you how small you are. I thought about all the times she said she wanted freedom. I wondered if she ever realized freedom only matters if you know what to do with it. A few days passed before another message came. This time it was from a new number. Just checking if you're okay. Burner phone. She couldn't help herself. I almost laughed. The same woman who once claimed she didn't need anyone now hiding behind disposable numbers just to feel heard. I didn't block it. I just let the messages sit there, unread. And that's when something shifted. It wasn't about proving a point anymore. It was about reclaiming space she never thought I'd take back. Her mom called that weekend. Said she was worried. Said her daughter was acting strange, quiet, not herself. I told her she'd find her balance eventually. But in my gut, I knew she wouldn't. Because she wasn't built for silence. She was built for attention. And now, she was alone with her thoughts, realizing that independence sounds great until no one's watching. That night, I opened the window, let the cold air in, and smiled. Not because I'd won, but because, for the first time, I didn't need to. By the second week, The silence had turned into something she couldn't bear. I could tell, not from what she said, but from how she said nothing at all. Her messages came less like conversations and more like echoes, as if she was just testing if someone was still out there listening. Hope you're doing okay. Heard you got promoted. Just checking in. Each one colder, shorter, lonelier. I didn't respond. I'd started running again in the mornings, getting coffee after at Starbucks like I used to before her. The same girl at the counter noticed and said, "You look lighter." I didn't correct her, she was right. The kind of light that comes from letting go of something that used to feel like gravity. Meanwhile, I knew she was trying to rebuild her image. Photos started appearing again. New outfits, new captions about self-growth, and new beginnings. But something in her face had changed. The energy was gone. The light in her eyes had turned into a flicker of someone trying too hard to convince the world, and herself, that everything was fine. Linda, her mother, called again. She said her daughter was different lately. Quieter, less social, spending weekends at home, not going out. She said she'd found a burner phone in her purse and asked if I knew anything about it. I said I didn't. But deep down, I already knew. That was her last line to me. A hidden number, a secret thread she couldn't let go of. One night, another message came. Different number again. "Do you ever think about me?" I stared at it for a while. Thought about how strange it was that she still didn't understand. That love isn't about being needed, it's about being chosen. And she'd made her choice. So I turned my phone over, screen down, and let it ring into nothing. Later, I saw her downtown by accident. She was walking alone, holding a Target bag, looking lost in thought. No phone, no performance. Just quiet. When she noticed me across the street, she froze. For a second, it felt like the whole world stopped. No cars, no noise, just that silent recognition between two people who used to know each other too well. She didn't wave. Neither did I. We just stood there, looking at the ghosts we'd become. And when I finally walked away, I realized something. She'd said she didn't need a man to be happy. She was right. What she needed was peace. But she'd thrown away the only person who'd given her that. And now she was learning the difference between freedom and loneliness. The next time I heard from her was 3 weeks later. Different number again. Same handwriting in her words. Careful, almost rehearsed. "I'm happy, you know. You were right. I don't need anyone." I read it twice and smiled. Because people who are truly happy don't send messages like that at midnight. They sleep. They rest. They move on. She wasn't moving anywhere. She was circling. By then, I had learned the rhythm of her attempts. Every few days, another text. Some confident, some desperate, some pretending to be casual. "Hope you're doing well. Saw your car near downtown. You look different in that new picture." It was almost poetic, the way she kept pretending she didn't miss me while making sure I never forgot she existed. I never blocked her. Not out of kindness, out of clarity. She needed to see what distance looked like when it wasn't followed by apology. One evening, I was out with friends from work at Applebee's. The kind of simple night that used to feel impossible with her. No tension, no hidden competition for attention. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I didn't need to open it to know. I already knew the rhythm. I ignored it, laughed at a joke, and realized something that almost felt like closure. She'd built her world around being seen, and I'd finally stopped being her audience. Later that week, Linda called again. I could hear exhaustion in her voice. She said her daughter had been quiet lately, barely talking to anyone, barely eating. She asked if I'd reached out, if maybe I could just check in. I told her I couldn't, not because I was angry, but because it would only make things worse. You can't heal someone who's addicted to attention by giving them more of it. After that, I started getting messages that weren't even sentences anymore. Just fragments. Missed the calm. Wish I'd listened. You really left. There was one that simply said, "It's so quiet." I didn't reply. I knew that silence she mentioned. I'd lived in it once, back when she started pulling away. But I'd learned how to turn that silence into peace. She hadn't. For her, it was punishment. And that's when it hit me. She didn't lose me when she said she didn't need a man. She lost me when she realized happiness isn't built on defiance. It's built on connection. And the one she'd burned was the only one that ever saw her for who she really was. It was almost a month since she'd left when I saw her again. Not planned, not dramatic, just coincidence. I was at Walmart, picking up a few things for the house: detergent, light bulbs, a new coffee mug. When I turned the corner, and there she was, standing in the cereal aisle, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. I almost laughed. Even her stillness felt performative. She noticed me before I could turn away. Her face froze for a second, then softened into something halfway between shock and nostalgia. I nodded politely, nothing more, and kept walking. But she followed. I could hear her heels tapping behind me, uneven, rushed. She stopped beside me near the self-checkout, pretending to look at something on the shelf. Then she said, "You really look different." I didn't look up, just scanned my items, bagged them calm. She said, "You're colder now. I can't tell if that's good or bad." I told her it's neither, it's quiet. She stared at me, waiting for more, but I was done explaining myself. When I walked out, she didn't follow this time. Later that night, another message came. "You didn't even ask how I've been." I stared at it for a while, then deleted it without opening. Because that was the problem. She still thought the conversation revolved around her. A few days later, Linda called. She said her daughter had told her we ran into each other. She said, "You looked peaceful," Linda said, almost surprised. I told her I was. Linda sighed and said, "She's not." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Then came the shift I didn't expect. One morning, I woke up to a message from a number I didn't recognize, a long one. It wasn't angry. It wasn't begging. It was raw. She said she missed the version of herself that existed when she was with me. That she thought independence would make her stronger, but it only made her smaller. That she was tired of pretending, tired of nights that felt too long, of silence that didn't comfort, but consumed. I read it twice, then 3 times. Not because I was moved, but because I finally saw what I needed to, the truth. She hadn't wanted freedom. She'd wanted control. And when I stopped giving her power, she mistook that for abandonment. The irony was, she was right about one thing. She didn't need a man to be happy. She needed to learn who she was without one. And for the first time, she was finally being forced to find out. After that message, I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I'd learned that silence speaks louder than explanations. Every word I didn't send became a mirror she had to face alone. A few days later, she sent another text. Short this time. I get it now. I didn't ask what she meant. She needed to sit with her own realization, not drag me back into it. It was strange how life started to feel normal again. I'd wake up early, make coffee, open the blinds, and just breathe. The house, once heavy with her noise, felt alive again, like it finally belonged to me. I replaced the photos on the wall with things that made me feel calm. No memories. No reminders. Just light. I ran into a mutual friend at a Home Depot one afternoon. He told me she'd quit her job. Said she was taking time for herself. I just nodded. He hesitated, then added, "She talks about you a lot. Says you went cold on her." I almost smiled. Because she still didn't understand that peace isn't cold. It's clarity. That night, I got another message from a new number. She said she was sorry. Not for what she'd done, but for how long it took her to realize it. Said she missed the way I used to look at her. Calm, steady, like I saw something good in her even when she didn't. She said she couldn't find that peace anywhere else. I read it once, then locked my phone. Because peace isn't something you look for in someone else. It's something you build after losing everything you thought you needed. And I wasn't about to lose it again. A week passed before Linda called. She sounded tired, like she'd aged years and months. She said her daughter wasn't doing well. Not physically, emotionally. She doesn't leave the house much, Linda said quietly. She keeps her phone off now. It's like she's scared of herself. I told her she'd be okay. Eventually, people always learn how to live with the silence they created. That evening, I sat outside, watching the sunset burn into the horizon. It was the same color as the dress she wore the night she told me she didn't need a man to be happy. Back then, I thought she meant it. Now I realized she'd been trying to convince herself. And maybe that was the cruelest part. Not that she lied to me, but that she believed the lie until it was too late to take it back. The last time she reached out, it wasn't through text. It was a voicemail. The kind people leave when they've run out of words to type. Her voice was quiet, shaky, almost unrecognizable. She said she didn't expect me to call back. That she just needed to say out loud that she understood now. "You didn't leave to punish me," she said. "You left to protect your peace." There was a pause, then a whisper. I thought peace was loneliness. Turns out, It's what I destroyed. I replayed it once, then deleted it. Not out of anger, out of respect. Some words aren't meant to live forever. After that, everything around me started to feel cleaner. My world was smaller, quieter, but sharper. Mornings were easier. I'd wake up early, go for a run, grab a coffee at Starbucks, and feel something I hadn't in years: clarity. It wasn't happiness exactly, but something steadier. Something that didn't depend on anyone else's chaos. Linda stopped calling too. I think she realized I'd made peace with it all. But one night, my phone rang again. It was a number I didn't know. I hesitated before answering, and for a second, I almost didn't. Then I heard Linda's voice. Soft. Fragile. She's been trying to move on, she said. But it's like she doesn't know how. She's not angry anymore. Just quiet. I told her that quiet was good. It's where growth begins. Linda said, she's still proud, you know. Still says she doesn't need anyone. I smiled faintly. Maybe one day she'll say it because she means it. That night, I thought about the way everything had played out. How silence, at first, felt like punishment, then became power. How detachment didn't come from hate, but from clarity. I realized that walking away hadn't been an ending. It had been a test, and she failed it before she even knew it had begun. Weeks later, I ran into her again at a gas station. No makeup, hair tied back, dressed simply. She looked real. For the first time, she didn't flinch when she saw me. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. She just nodded slightly. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was acceptance. When I left, she stayed by the pump, eyes down, shoulders small. I didn't feel pity. Just a strange kind of closure. The kind that comes when both people finally understand the truth. She didn't need a man to be happy. She needed to lose one to finally understand what happiness really meant. After that night at the gas station, something inside me settled for good. Not like a victory, more like a closing door that no one needed to open again. For months, my life had been defined by her noise, her opinions, her moods, her need to be seen. Now, it was all replaced by quiet routine, the kind that didn't demand anything from me. And I liked it. Still, it was strange how her shadow lingered in small details. A random song in the grocery store. The smell of her old perfume at Target. Little reminders that used to pull me apart, now barely registered. I'd glance at them, acknowledge them, and move on. That's the thing about healing. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "You're okay now." About a month later, Linda called again. She didn't sound sad this time, just reflective. She said her daughter had started seeing a therapist, that she'd stopped trying to prove things online. No more filtered photos, no self-love quotes, no performative independence. She's different now, Linda said quietly. She doesn't talk much. She just listens. I told her that was good. Sometimes silence teaches more than 1,000 explanations. A few days later, I was working late. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the message preview caught my eye. It was her. "I'm not asking you back. I just wanted to say thank you for walking away." I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no bitterness in her words this time. No manipulation, no guilt. Just truth. I didn't reply. Not out of pride, out of peace. The next morning, I went for a drive along the coast. The sun was coming up, the road was empty, and for the first time in years, my mind was too. I thought about how everything started. One sentence over dinner that changed everything. "I don't need a man to be happy." It used to sound like arrogance. Now it just sounded like pain disguised as pride. She didn't know how to love herself without tearing someone else down first. As the wind hit my face, I realized something simple. I hadn't left her to prove a point. I left to save the part of me she kept trying to convince didn't matter. And in the end, that was the real proof. Not that she didn't need a man, but that I didn't need her to remember who I was. Months passed quietly. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty anymore. Just earned. My world had become smaller, simpler. Work, the gym, the same coffee every morning at Starbucks, a run before sunset. I didn't check my phone as much. I didn't look for updates. I didn't need reminders of her anymore, because she'd become something different. Not a wound, but a lesson. Then one evening, Linda called again. I hadn't heard from her in a while. Her tone was calm, steady. She said her daughter had started volunteering, helping at some community center near town. "She's getting better," Linda said softly. Still quiet, but better. I told her that was good. That quiet meant she was finally learning how to live with herself. Linda hesitated, then added, "She still talks about you sometimes." Not in anger. More like, she finally understands. That night, I sat on the porch and thought about what that meant, understanding. How it's something you can't rush or demand from anyone. It only comes after everything breaks. And maybe that's what had to happen. She had to lose everything that distracted her before she could see the truth underneath. A week later, I got another message. A new number again. No greeting this time, no excuses. Just one line. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say you were right." I didn't need to ask what she meant. She was talking about that night at Olive Garden, the line she'd thrown like a dagger. "I don't need a man to be happy." Back then, it was ego. Now, it was reflection. I didn't reply, but for the first time, I didn't feel distance between us. Just understanding, silent, mutual, unspoken. Like we'd both finally stopped trying to win a war that didn't need to exist. Later that week, I saw her again. Not planned. She was sitting outside a cafe, reading, hair loose, no phone in sight. She didn't notice me at first. She looked calm. Different. The kind of calm that only comes when you stop performing for the world. When she finally looked up and saw me, she didn't smile, didn't wave. Just nodded slightly, an acknowledgement, nothing more. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. I wasn't angry or proud or nostalgic. I was free. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come when someone comes back to you. It comes when you both move on. Finally, completely, without needing to say another word. The next time I saw her, it wasn't a coincidence. It was a choice. Weeks had passed since that quiet moment outside the cafe, and something in me felt unfinished. Not the past, not the pain, but the space between us that had been left open. I wasn't going to rekindle anything. I just wanted to end it properly, face to face, not through silence anymore. So one Friday evening, I drove to her mother's house. The same house where we used to spend holidays, where the walls still carried faint echoes of laughter and arguments. Linda answered the door, surprised but gentle. "She's in the backyard," she said quietly, as if she already knew why I was there. She was sitting by the fire pit, wrapped in an old gray sweater, hair loose, no makeup, no pretense. The woman who once lived for attention now looked like someone who'd finally stopped running. She turned when she heard the door. For a second, her face froze, then softened into something real. No act, no defense, just a quiet acceptance. I sat across from her without saying anything. The fire cracked between us, filling the silence. After a while, she spoke first. Said she didn't expect to see me again. Said she'd rehearsed 1,000 conversations in her head, but none of them felt right now that I was actually there. I told her not to rehearse, just to speak. She took a breath and said she'd been wrong about everything. About freedom, happiness, independence. That all she'd really wanted was to feel in control, and she mistook control for peace. "You gave me what I asked for," she said softly. "You let me be alone. And I hated it." I nodded, told her she had to go through that. Because sometimes you can't understand the value of something until you destroy it and sit in the ruins long enough to feel the emptiness. She looked down, tears hitting her hands, and whispered, "I just want you to know. I finally found peace too. But it's not the same without you." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her, calm, steady. Then I said, "Peace isn't supposed to depend on anyone. If it does, it's not peace, it's a pause." She smiled sadly, knowing I was right. And for the first time, there was no tension, no unfinished business, no need to fix or explain. Just two people who had finally learned their lessons, separately. When I stood up to leave, she didn't ask me to stay. She just whispered, "Thank you." And as I walked back to my car, I realized that was the real ending. Not love, not closure, just clarity. Because she was right about one thing after all. She didn't need a man to be happy. But she needed to lose the right one to finally learn what happiness truly means. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.